Question is, knowing that He's almighty, knowing who He is, do I believe it? Do I really believe it? Do I really believe that He's a speaking God, that He's a listening God, that He really hears, that He really does act in my best interest, that He really is faithful, that He really does make promises and He keeps them, that He really is alive? Do I believe that? Honestly, when I have a rough day, sometimes I'm lacking in faith. It's because of my unbelief. If I'm having a rough time and I'm really struggling with something, often for me it's because, well, I'm just failing to believe how big God is. God is almighty and He can handle this. But am I believing it? Am I trusting in Him for it? It's like the children of Israel in verse 9 of this passage. They were discouraged. They weren't listening to Moses because discouragement had crept in. Well, that's because they weren't believing how mighty God is. How about for Moses in verse 30 of this passage? Listen to these words. In verse 30 of this passage at the very end of chapter 6. But Moses, after all this, Moses argued with the Lord saying, I can't do it. I'm such a clumsy speaker. Why should Pharaoh listen to me? Now, I don't know about you, but when I hear those words, it's easy to look back and say, wow, Moses, dude, you had a burning bush out of which the Lord spoke miraculously. The burning bush wasn't burning up. You had a staff in your hands, and God turned it into a snake, and then you picked it up and He turned it back into a staff. You had a hand that was, you put it in your cloak, it came out leprous, and you put it back in, it came out healed. God said all these amazing things to you, revealing who He is. I am Yahweh. I am El Shaddai. I am God Almighty. After all of that, Moses, where's the faith? You had a burning bush. You had a staff, a mirror, a healed hand. All these words, all these promises of God, all these things that are taking place. Where's the faith? What more do you need? It's easy to say that about Moses, but what about me? We're all in the same place, aren't we? What more do I need to believe who God is so that I can lean in more and more to worship Him for who He is? So that's our closing question for today to help us walk this out. For what do you need to believe God? What do you need to believe Him for? What do you need to trust Him for? What is the thing that you just have to realize God is big enough to handle this?